interesting to learn about, and it's very important to be informed on. I'm talking about the psychological effects on human trafficking. Over 20.9 million people, men, women, and children, are victims of human trafficking. But do you know what human trafficking actually is? IOMX, December 2016. Human trafficking doesn't happen abruptly. It's usually a process, meaning there's steps for it to become an actual problem. First, traffickers have to recruit their victims. Some victims are more prone to being trafficked than others. These types of victims include undocumented immigrants, runaway and homeless youth, victims of trauma and abuse, refugees, and other impoverished individuals. Traffickers will target these people and then transport them to places where they will be exploited, while hiding them from authorities so no one can catch them. They can also receive victims from other human traffickers. So you might ask, why wouldn't the victims just run away? Or just say no? Well, traffickers exploit victims by threatening or forcing them to do what they say. They also can abduct them and deceive them against their will, sometimes offering them something like monetary values in exchange for what they're asking for. They use this to try to convince victims and trick them into doing what they say. Traffickers also try to exploit victims so they can make profits off of them or use them for their own benefit. There are two most common types of human trafficking, and these are for sexual exploitation or forced labor, County of Mateo. I have done thorough research on a variation of different trusted sources, which have allowed me to obtain a strong knowledge on not only what human trafficking is, but what psychological effects in particular it can produce on a person. I will give you some insight on how human trafficking can affect a person's psychological health in general. I will talk about some of the most common psychological effects that human traffickers will get and why they suffer from these after an incident, even years after an incident. Psychological effects can be different for every person, but they tend to be in the most similar range in all types of trauma. However, victims of human trafficking can present different psychological symptoms, including PTSD, depression, anxiety, panic disorder, suicidal thoughts or actions, Stockholm Syndrome, and substance abuse. Leah Taylor, September 2015. However, victims trafficking show more fears, specifically of being controlled or trapped. Polaris Project, January 2020. They can feel a sense of uneasiness at all times, like someone's out there to get them, someone's watching them, and they can never feel safe because if the person is always out there and they could always just be sent back into the horrible system. They always show a lot of self-blame and low self-worth. People who have experienced human trafficking tend to be manipulated by the traffickers, would they make them feel that it's their fault that they're being trafficked and that they did something to repeal those results. Leah Taylor, September 2015. This can also add contributing factors of shame and guilt to the victims. These feelings can cause them to feel very alone, thus the depression symptom, and can cause them to want to isolate themselves from friends, family, or even anyone. They tend to feel out of place and that no one can understand them, which can lead again to these negative effects of depression and anxiety, and many more. Human trafficking is a serious issue, and it impacts more people than you would originally think. It can also result in serious psychological issues and harsh mental health problems, long term. Now that we have determined the different types of human trafficking and the results, I hope you can feel better informed on what exactly it is and be able to look out for signs of it. And also feel informed on what it can do to a person psychologically. In closing, I would like to remind you all that human trafficking is a global threat and can happen to anyone. Being informed on it will just help you to become more aware of your surroundings and understand the issue. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.